Wow. CLG, project and training grants.
Okay. So Jackie sent me some talking points on this. The state has funding from FY23 that we can use for CLG mini grants. The amount is $7,500, and we are suggesting that it be used for the required 4 hours of training for commission members. Hi, welcome. Oh, no worries. Here's the agenda. Sorry it's so warm in here.
I'm always cold.
There is a guideline document that Director Spry shared with me that I can forward along about CLG training guidelines. Okay. But scholarships may be used to support an individual's attendance at an in-person or online conference, seminar, or other event, or to engage a qualified professional to provide training or educational information to your community's preservation decision makers. Scholarships are available to support training and continuing education of all elected, appointed, and staff level decision makers, including council members, supervisors, members of a review board, historical commission, planning commission, zoning hearing board, municipal staff, and contract consultants. But again, the HRC members are required to have 4 hours of training every year, and it's recommended that we use the CLG grant to find training. Specifically training, the HRC has mentioned in the past training on how to use design guidelines when issuing COAs. And since we have those downtown design guidelines in process for more official use, perhaps training on how to implement those.
I think our last training was in September, I believe, that we did jointly. Would we be looking to have our next round of training around the same time? Potentially, like I think we did before, like we devoted an entire day to those 4 sessions that were done by the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. Same deal.
Yeah, I think tentatively kind of the same time of year again in September, and probably set aside half a day or a day. We just did trainings with the Planning Commission last week, and it was a similar setup. So I'd imagine at least half a day.
Is there anything that we as a commission need to do to move forward with an application for that grant?
I don't believe so at this time, but I can check in with Director Spry to be sure.
Okay. You know that last year we were polled to see which training sessions we thought were most relevant. And I think if we get to that point again, it would be very helpful.
Sure.
Great. Any other questions about the CLG training grants? No. All right. Moving on then to new business. For Hearing in Action, we have historic nominations, which are still on hold. So moving on from that, the Hearing in Action for applications of certificate of appropriateness, of which there are none, which moves us on to our director's report. And again, I look to you, Assistant Planner Moore.
Thank you.
How are things in the department?
Busy. Last week on Thursday and Friday, we had our consultants from Design Workshop here for the strategic kickoff, a 2-day event for the Comprehensive Recreation, Parks, and Open Spaces Plan. Part of the kickoff involved brainstorming for a catchier, shorter name than Comprehensive Parks and Recreation and Open Spaces Plan. But we had some internal staff meetings with the consultants, including the mayor and the chief of staff in the Parks Department. We convened the study committee for the first time, which includes about 30 people from the community, various groups. And the team was really nice. It was good to meet with them. We did some driving around to the various parks. There's a 12-month timeline on that, so we're expecting to have a lot of progress made this time of year, if not totally done. Also last week on Wednesday, we published the request for proposals for a tree inventory and sustainable urban forestry management plan, which is another one we need to catch your name for. That RFP went out to a number of firms that were supplied to us by the DCNR and the PA Western Conservancy. We are asking that work be done by the end of this year, so the consultants would spend most of the year here looking at all of the trees in boulevards, on streets, in parks, the public trees, and then providing us the GIS data and coming up with a maintenance plan going into the future. And that's a part of this DCNR grant we have to plant trees. It's a community urban forestry and watershed grant. We amended the scope and budget of that grant last week because it expires at the end of this year, to make sure that we'll be able to expend all of the money. We've added new partners, and we should be on track now with the inventory out for bid to spend all that money by the end of the year. So that should be an exciting ongoing project. There will be a number of opportunities to get involved in both the Recreation Parks and Open Spaces Plan and the Urban Forestry Plan throughout those processes, if anyone would like to be involved or you know anybody who would like to be involved. And I think that is all we have for the department update.
Cooper, for the parks plan, is there going to be a type of interactive, like online update, or is it going to just be reported? Just wondering, because sometimes I've seen that done.
That is a good question. I believe there are going to be, likely after the various study committee meetings, like the mayor's press conference. I don't know how interactive anything would be online.
I meant more of the, like, kind of here's an update, here's your schedule, and all that type of stuff. I know there was a recent presentation at the mayor's the conference, but I didn't get a chance to see that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely facilitate something like that.
There's definitely an opportunity, I think, for the HRC to be engaged. If you look at the city parks, there are several that are historic in nature, right? They've been part of the city since its founding. Most of our parks also include historic markers, even if they are, right, Erie County Historical Society, City of Erie, Erie County, PHMs, right? There's an array of markers in most of our parks, as well as veterans memorials, statues, right? There are a lot of historic resources tied to our green spaces.
Yes, for sure.
What were the two planners? There was a Rotable, and what were the two planners, the city planners that had the parks lined up? There's Gridley, Perry,
yes.
Wayne. There was a master plan done, I don't know when, but there was two plans.
Okay.
And I know it's an excellent plan. Our own historic preservation plan talks a lot about green spaces, historic green spaces as well. So I wonder if there is a way that we could officially be plugged into that process, make sure that there's overlap or that the historic voice is represented through their own planning processes.
Yeah, I'm sure those plans will be reviewed as part of the process. So how did you get here?
Right.
Yeah, we provided Design Workshop a lot of pre-existing information about the park system, but the study committee that has been formed, I think, is still changeable.
Okay.
So if somebody from the HRC wants to be on that study committee, I think it will meet 3 or 4 times throughout the process. I think that'd be a good place to do it. We're also discussing with them public engagement opportunities throughout the summer. I think there was a big emphasis on youth engagement and meeting with the students who will be on summer break, maybe even having some of these events in the parks and just kind of polling people as they walk by. But there should be a lot of engagement opportunities throughout the process.
Is the study committee, is it possible to see a list? There, and it doesn't have to be right now during this meeting.
Sure.
I'm just thinking there may be, for lack of a better term, history geeks and or preservation champions already on that committee.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure there are. It was, actually, one of the icebreaker questions they asked the whole group was, "What's your favorite park or recreation facility anywhere in the world?" And a lot of people talked about Erie specific ones.
yeah.
But especially the people who'd lived here their whole lives had a lot of information about some of the parks that they grew up in that might not hear otherwise. So it was kind of cool to hear.
Well, that's great. Does sound like you've been very busy. And what better time to get together in the parks than summer, right?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be a good time for it.
Moving on from the parks, though, I did have a question on process update for hiring a preservation planner.
Yes.
Are you at all at liberty to brief us where we are in that process?
What I am aware of is that we've offered the position to one of the candidates and are waiting to hear back on acceptance.
Oh,
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah. So hopefully any day now, we should have somebody on board.
Keep my fingers crossed. I'm sure you're keeping yours crossed.
Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you. Is there any other business?
can I just ask what all we've done about that Preservation Month and the week we wanted to?
Yep. Yes, I guess we should put it in the record that Commissioner Pepper, you joined us kind of mid-meeting. So for Preservation Month, we have a meeting with the mayor's office, I think within the next week, if I'm not mistaken, to coordinate events and communication for the month.
So does our whole committee have to be there?
No, I think that it's something that Director Spry has taken on our behalf.
Okay.
And we also have a few dates from the Art Museum about potentially hosting an event there that I know that Director Spry is working through. And we are also anticipating briefing City Council on our goals for this coming year, which are actually listed in the back of your packet, the sheet.
Oh, okay.
So we ratified those. And we'll be talking to them about not only the goals for the year, but the accomplishments from last year and the incipient update for our Article 7. And those, at the moment, rest with the city solicitor who's reviewing them. We should have a copy of them back in time to review and approve, hopefully for next meeting.
When are we going to know the date of the event at the Art Museum? Because we should really be getting these invitations out to people sooner than later.
Very much so. My understanding is that the meeting with the mayor's office and orchestrating communications is when the date will be picked. So
when is that? This coming week?
Friday, I believe.
This Friday? Okay. Well, should we have a special meeting, maybe after Easter or something so that we can really get on this?
Seems like our staff is driving most of it. What would you feel comfortable with, Cooper?
Well, I just think if we're going to have a big event at the Art Museum, then we really need to invite people, not just hope that people read an email or trip over it in some site somewhere. I mean, I think we really need to try and get a great turnout for this thing.
I would agree that at least some discussion over an invitation list.
Right.
I mean,
right.
we've tossed about some ideas, I think, in the past with who could be invited, but certainly open to having Jackie spearhead that. If she would like input, I think that would be something that commissioners would be willing to help with as far as, again, building out the invitation list and not anticipating that these are mailed invitations. These are, just something that's going to be emailed out to folks. But
Well, and wouldn't it be nice to be able to send people a postcard or something? You know, not just email.
however we want to do that. I actually prefer no paper, but I know that many others do prefer paper. So however we decide to structure that is just fine.
Well, because I think we would want to, maybe, I don't know if the History Center or the Waterford History Group or whatever give out their membership, but maybe we could, give them postage paid postcards for them to send to their membership on our behalf, type of thing.
Well, so I think this probably goes back to who our intended audience is. And I don't know if we've ever really addressed that question in detail.
Well, I would think, people that are willing to pay a membership to do something about history would be a real good group to approach.
Because it seems like our past conversation is really centered on trying to
Plus, your group has a membership, right? All the preservation organizations have memberships.
Well, and that's why I would advocate for us to really talk through again the overarching purpose for the reception and our goals for the reception, our intended audience. Because yes, I could give you a list of 100 people, right? But there are going to be people who are countywide. There are going to be people we may or may not be part of our intended audience. I think for certain who we stated were members of our intended audience are those who nominated buildings since the inception of the program. Perhaps those who received grant funding since the inception of the program.
Those would
right?
be absolute, no-brainer people we should invite because they've actually touched us.
So who are you thinking should be
the audience? I think
for
there's
this?
a much broader universe of history-oriented, interested people. I was very disappointed at the lack of outreach that went on for those nice little things we had in the beginning where we were talking about one of them was at PACA. And,
for the Historic Preservation Plan.
Yeah.
The public meetings.
There
for the
were
Historic
hundreds of
Preservation
people that should have been invited to that had no idea that it happened. And I think that falls on us. I think we need to get together a really good list and talk to some of the major historic organizations in town. And, if they're not willing to give us a list of names because of some policy they have, we could give them our invitation and ask them to mail it on
I think that's what you do instead of creating our own mailing list. Reach out to all the groups.
Yeah, we need to
sure
start a mailing list. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
I very much think that the communications officer in the mayor's office is going to be the one to really help coordinate the city's communication plan for this. There's only so much that we have input on. But I think to your point, Mr. Pepper, I don't think a special meeting is required, but I do think that we need to implore the staff to pull each of us in and to keep us in the loop as things progress so that we're able to distribute out to our contact groups and make sure that the right people are being pulled in and made aware of whatever event we end up putting together. And I think that Commissioner Myers' point that our target audience is really recognizing the folks that went through our grant program and that have already gone through the application process for nominations are who we intend to honor and to celebrate at the event itself.
Yeah, right, and invite them and say we want to honor you.
Right.
And then we can invite a bunch of other people to
fill the room.
To fill the room. Well, and people who are interested in history are by and large usually very interested in preservation.
Sure.
You know?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think it's, you know, it would be a good group to touch and invite.
Agreed. But I do think we need to be very conscious of, I think as Commissioner Meyer alluded to earlier, having too broad of a net might be an issue because inherently those that are outside of the city of Erie can't access this program. It's not intended really for countywide distribution, but it would be, I think, good to extend the invitation to let them know, I think, more about this program. I think we just need to be really conscious of trying to target those that live within the city, that this is something that's accessible to them. And
well, even if they don't live in the city, they might own property in the city. You never know.
That's true.
Well, and there could also, so we had a steering committee for the Historic Preservation Plan.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
There was a steering committee for the Historic Preservation Plan, right? They should be invited. There's also everyone who submitted an email address stating that they, right, wanted to be engaged in the process could be, I mean, there are a lot of people who have either touched or been engaged through the program that could ultimately be invited. Again, depending on the goals of the program and how broadly you want to cast that net.
Right.
Well, could we have like a work session and sort of hammer this out so that we, people aren't getting the invitation the day of the event?
I think let's, again, I would, I think, refrain from having a special session of this board to do it, but I would rely on staff to kind of do things electronically. So, have keep us apprised of like an email distribution list of community stakeholders and partners that, will be included. And that way we're able to either make suggestions or ensure that those people get the message. But I don't think that a special meeting for us is needed for that, because then, it's just a bit bureaucratic for something that staff is primarily responsible for.
Well, I don't know. I think us having our own mailing list of interested people is something we should work on. I don't think there's any downside in that.
Because especially when, I very much agree. I think especially as we continue to develop, making sure that things like meeting notices are distributed, nominations and certificate of appropriateness, things like that, we do have kind of an HRC distribution list. And that way we're able to ensure that everything that we're reviewing, goes out to the public in advance. It does seem really prudent, but I don't know enough about the city's kind of machinations, if we're permitted to do that, or if I'm looking at Cooper, who's getting increasingly nervous in this. I think that it's probably something we want to hammer out with the communications department in the city to make sure that we're following whatever guidelines are needed.
Yeah, they do have processes of reaching out, but I think once we have a date and more information solidified about this event, there's nothing that would stop us from reaching out to our own networks personally and things once there's like an established message from the city. And if we don't want to have like a formal special meeting, I'll volunteer, Director Spry and I both, if maybe we want to do like more like an office hours kind of setup where we have dedicated time. If there is something you want to come talk about or a mailing list you want to go over, maybe it's not an official meeting, but we can set aside time to make sure that that is taken care of, if that would be helpful.
It certainly maintains you as the point of contact and allows us to interact without having a formal meeting.
I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't hear you.
So it does indeed allow Jackie and Cooper to remain the point of contact for the event, but still allows us to provide input in a way that we are not actually forming a consensus for a formal meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, when
But going forward, an idea with the website, since the website is being redesigned, if we do want to do special notices, we can actually put on the website, if you'd like to join the HRC mailing list, please sign up here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
it'd be
great.
Yeah. And actually,
When is it in that meeting? It's this Friday, you said?
I believe the meeting with the mayor is this Friday.
Well, we don't need to be at that meeting, but
Right.
so after that, we'd have a date, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about that week after Easter? Should we try and do something then?
Yeah. Jackie will be on vacation most of that week.
Oh, the week after Easter?
Yeah. But I'm still happy to meet.
Well, we could meet with you,
Yeah.
and
And
that
maybe,
would be good.
maybe next week too. This coming week.
I can't be here next week, but I can
Okay.
be here that week after Easter.
Okay. We'll email the commission when we have a date set, and we can pick a time
Okay,
to meet after that.
Thank you.
that'd be great.
All right, then. I think we've reached the end of our agenda. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.